On today's episode, we are going to do something slightly different. Instead of doing an intro and a chat, we are going to just have a fireside chat between me and Greg. We're going to do more and more of these, try and get episodes out a bit more regularly. They're easier to do while we're being all busy in that. So, hope you like it. Greg.
Hello. How are you doing?
Hi. I'm all right, mate. How are you doing?
Not too bad. This is the second time I've said hello to Tom this morning. The first time I not turned my mic on.
Yeah, solid start.
Yeah,
now listen,
that kind of
we
day.
should probably say, so this is going to be a new format for us, right? We are going to start doing more episodes and more regularly of us chatting in between our guest episodes and our FAQ episodes as a way of hopefully imparting more knowledge to you and more of our experiences, but also being able to put out a few more regular podcasts. But
Yeah,
they might be slightly shorter because, as you all know, the regular listeners will know how dry me and Greg are.
Yeah, much shorter. And that was the podcast. Thanks, folks.
Thanks for listening. What a great episode. All right, on to the next one. No, so obviously this one is going to be a bit shorter. We are both busy. It kind of feels slightly, but sort of doesn't know at the same time, right? Like we're both busy with family things. I mean, does it feel at all like it's kind of busying up? Because this year's just been weird.
I had a busy June, a few trips and jobs away, which was fun. July, a little less busy. August, historically, is normally quite quiet for me.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people, it's quite for a lot of people because especially in the UK, people tend to go on their kind of summer holidays, the same as the States. So you get a lot of people who aren't at their desk. But I don't really mind that. I try and take August off as much as possible in terms of just try and enjoy the good weather, try and get outside as much as possible, kind of, embrace. I always try and embrace the quiet times if I can, but I think it's always the kind of, I was going to say the perennial, but I'm not sure if that's the right term. The issue that's always faced by freelancers is the kind of feast and famine, and when it is quiet, being able to enjoy that or make the most of it rather than spend it being anxious about the fact that you're not working.
I mean, it's tough, right? Do you know what? Normally, I think if any other year, right, we would kind of be like, oh yeah, no, things are a bit quiet, but it'll busy up, right? This year, though, just never got started. And because I think we've had a couple of really ropey years because of COVID and stuff, it's very hard to relax. But I don't know if you've ever done this. Have you ever just gone back historically through your accounts and you've done an average of no?
That terrifies me.
But I did an average because I was trying to figure out. I was just like, look, are there times in the year where historically I don't bill as much? January, I barely bill anything. August, I barely bill anything. And knowing that historically over the past 20 years of my career, I go, okay, in January, I am not expecting to do much work. And in August, I am also not expecting to do much work.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, okay, historically, those are my quiet times. I will be fine. I will I will force myself to not worry during those times. And I would imagine it might be January and August for you. It'll be January and August for a lot of listeners. But it is worth doing, going back and looking through your accounts and going, okay, that's when I bill less, so therefore I'm quieter. Yeah. Okay, that's cool. I'll just try and enjoy it.
I think for a lot of photographers or videographers or anyone who's listening really works in the kind of creative industry but is a freelance, it really can depend on the type of work that you're doing as to how you're used to that, because so much of my work is quite last minute. I tend to find I'm rarely gonna get a job that's booked in for 3 months' time.
Right.
You might get that with a trip, with an assignment where it's a foreign trip or something, and it's the dates are kind of blocked in. But even with advertising jobs, sometimes they'll come in and it'll be like they'll have sat on it for ages and ages and ages, and then it goes out to tender, and then you might kind of do your pitch and then get your job, and then suddenly it's all go, and it's like
we're shooting next week.
Yesterday.
Yeah, right.
And that I find quite stressful, if I'm honest, when it is like that, because you just, especially when you're trying to balance life with those kind of jobs,
Yeah. Do you think when it comes to kind of like a lot of that stuff and kind of advertising stuff in general, for example, do you think it is because the moving image side of things, a lot of the time we're having to work alongside big moving image teams, and because there's a lot more budget and more moving parts as far as that side of things goes, do you think stills almost gets not forgotten about, but basically just pushed onto the back burner a little bit? And then when they've kind of got the moving image side of things to a great place, they go, oh shit, stills. Quick,
Yeah,
get Greg, get Tom on the phone.
I think that might be that. Yeah, that sounds feasible. Definitely, I think that probably is the case. I've certainly had that in the past. I had not thought about it from that point of view before. I think generally, what it is kind of people just procrastinating a lot of the time and not making decisions on stuff. And you know what
Yeah.
it's like. You go on a shoot, and you be on a shoot, and they still haven't made a decision, a creative decision. I was listening to something the other day, and it was somebody who worked in post production, and they were talking about how they're having a real visual FX, basically having a real kind of tough time with it at the moment, because
Mm-hmm.
so many of these VFX companies are bidding on these big jobs, but they're undercutting one another to get with the big clients, the kind of Pixar films and people like that, because they feel like once they've got in, they'll get some more work.
Sure.
But what it means is that when the jobs do come in, you've got less VX artists able to work on that job, and they've got more work to do, which means that they're kind of overworked, understaffed, and sometimes the actual end product can be a bit shonky.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of this person was saying that so often one of the main problems is the client will come back to him and be like, oh, actually, can you just change this back to this and change this back to that? And it's because quite often they don't actually know what they want until they see
Right.
it. I
They
mean,
know what they don't want.
I'm thinking of my web designer at the moment, as with sympathy as I say this, because I'm basically doing exactly this to him. So sorry, Tom, if you're listening, but
He
yes,
is actually listening.
yeah, you
I
probably will
messaged
be.
him. I queued him up.
But yeah, it can be the case when somebody can't quite kind of hasn't got it fully formed in their head exactly what they want, then it can be quite difficult to actually deliver that because they don't know themselves. It's kind of you almost need to give them multiple options, and I do find that sometimes in shoots, where you're on a shoot and you kind of get a sense that maybe the client doesn't actually fully signed off on what they actually want.
Mm-hmm.
But that's part of the job, I guess.
Oh yeah, it's 100% part of the job. I mean, that's also why I think we just have to be super flexible and be able to kind of move on a dime. And this is kind of why people like you and I
I mean,
do
digital has
our
definitely made it harder for that, hasn't it? Like in terms of you can suddenly do anything, and anything can be done post fact or post shoot in some ways. So
yeah. But I also think there's a big part of not maybe expectation mismanagement, but I think there's a lot of, again, not flippancy. There's a lot of just, oh yeah, we can do that. Oh yeah,
mm,
we can sort it. There's so much of our job now that can be done after the fact, and the whole fix it in post thing.
mm,
I do think that I'm now trying when I'm shooting tethered. I'm now trying to get as close to the shot
yeah,
with zero adjustments in Capture One. So when people look at it, they go, "That's a great." I mean, my raw files now hopefully look really good, like almost like the finished shot. But I think there's still that element of, oh, we'll have to fix it later. We'll have to sort this, especially as we work now up against a lot of, again, adversity sounds like really, really too much of a strong word for it. But we come up against a lot of problems because we're now having to shuffle around location houses alongside big moving image teams and stuff like that.
mm,
I did a job the other month, and we were told we were going to have quite a big room to set a studio up, and then we were kind of plonked in the box room.
mm,
Not plonked in the box room. Basically, I think the location service had sent over the wrong measurements. So when we were in the box room, we then had to change everything round and figure out. And then I had to kind of like have the camera back up against the wall with the flip out screen facing back to me to be able to get like enough separation on a longer lens.
yeah.
So I think we just have to kind of just be as flexible as we possibly can to be able to, you know, be able to make the most of everything we get chucked into.
I mean, there was an interesting thing with when everyone was kind of talking a lot about AI and what have you. There was one of these memes that popped up that's like AI is going to need the the client to really fully understand exactly what they need, but in order for them to get something. So don't
Right.
worry, we're all right. And it was kind of like I get the sense that I looked the other day. I think Adobe Firefly was saying that there's been a billion images, AI images generated with Adobe Firefly so far.
Now that's also crazy because Firefly is the lesser popular of the
Yeah,
service. I wonder what the Midjourney. I wonder what the Midjourney numbers is. I also wonder how many of those Midjourney images are being used. Like,
yeah,
because I obviously am quite techy, love tech,
mm,
but the AI thing, it scares me and excites me in equal measure. And I do think throughout all the AI argument, I was speaking to a creative director and they said, we can't not do shoots. And I was like, okay, well, that's really interesting. Tell me why. Because it wasn't the technical, it wasn't the kind of the end result. It wasn't that. It was the experience.
mm,
Like clients, agency, people who work in agencies, photographers, everyone involved with the shoots loves what they do, right?
yeah,
And for a lot of the guys who are based in an office, going out on shoots is one of the best bits of the job.
yeah,
Why would you
yeah,
want to get rid of that?
yeah, yeah,
For
yeah,
really, in the grand scheme of things, which is not a massive cost, right?
yeah,
Like it's expensive. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm not being flippant, but like it's not the world's biggest cost.
mm.
So why would you almost take that out? And I'm not saying that we should all just kind of keep it going for it as it's a bit of a jolly, but it's a big thing to remember that actually people
Yeah.
love the experience of what we do.
I always thought this about when companies were saying we're going to get rid of our offices. And you go
Mm.
into some agencies and you think this office is kind of part of the reason why people love working for this company, because they can
Yeah.
come into this office and it's got a health bar that they can visit at any point. It's got like a gym downstairs. It's got like foosball tables and sorry, I don't know what foosball is.
Foosball. Oh yeah.
Foosball. Hans, do you want to play the foosball? Yeah, like they've got those things which, let's face it, I don't have in my studio in in Brixton, and I certainly don't have in my shed at home
You
here.
don't have a health bar in your shed at home,
No, I mean
Greg.
I've got
How will you maintain your employees' happiness?
I've got some snack bars, but I don't have a health bar. Otherwise, the rats will get in. Yeah. No,
But
it's just yeah.
it is
I
like
think
that,
you
isn't
need
it?
to have that draw towards, as you said, like people do enjoy going on shoots, and also that allows people to act in a that's part of the creative process, is actually having a team there and collaborating. And I do think maybe we'll adapt, but there's a certain thing to be said for just sitting behind a computer and generating an image
Mm.
that is totally lost from the kind of organic essence of being somewhere and finding something creative as a team that's actually engaging person to person rather than digitally. But I
Yeah.
don't know, maybe in 30 years time we'll look back and be like a couple of old farts. Sorry,
Well,
someone's calling me.
I would also look at the people who are kind of like plugging all the AI stuff, right? It sounds like this is going to sound
Mm,
like this is not meant to sound like nasty, but there's a lot of people like if you go on Instagram, right, and you kind of do doom scrolling, you've got a lot of very inexperienced people, or and they're all doing it out of their bedrooms, not bedrooms, they're all doing it out of their house, and they're all going, "We don't need X, Y, and Z," and I'm like, "You didn't need X, Y, and Z anyway. Your
yeah.
career was not at a point where you were commissioning X, Y, and Z. Your career was that you were not X, Y, and Z yourself.
Mm,
And there's a lot of people creating solutions for problems which simply didn't exist, and they're forgetting about what everyone involved brings to the
mm,
table. I mean, I feel now a bit calmer about AI, and for one quite simple fact, we aren't the most important industry that's going to be affected,
yeah.
right? You're not, if photography tomorrow ceased to exist as a result of AI, obviously it would be crushing. But the majority of photographers being flexible and being able to kind of being the kind of type of thinkers that we tend to be, I'm sure we would be fine. Like a friend of mine, I went for some beers with him the other night. We've already created a doomsday business scenario where we've already got a business that's completely AI proof that we're going to go off and do. And yes, it'll be very, very different to what we're currently doing, but we figure there's a business case there and we'll go off and have a laugh. Will I earn as much money? Absolutely not. But will it mean that I'm about in the weekends? Again, probably not. We haven't really thought this one through. But we do, but we are that sort of, I think the people who are drawn to photography have like a natural inquisition. They have like a natural problem fixing
Inquisition, well, like the
ability.
Spanish.
Yeah, exactly. The Spanish. No one expects the Spanish Inquisition. But I feel that as photographers, we are that way kind of drawn, right? I think there's something about photography that fascinates us. And then when we get into it, there's problem after problem after problem after problem that we love solving. I mean, that's me personally. I know you're the same. You love modifying gear and figuring out how that can fit in there and why does that light do that? And, I just feel that, if photography does change or cease to exist, we'll be all right. We'll go and figure it out. The people I do worry for example, are, obviously I worry for everyone, but there are going to be industries that are quite heavily hit, which historically are very well paid. So you are going to have the legal system will be completely changed as a result of AI. Right? You'll have the finance system completely changed.
The insurance system.
Insurance, exactly. So you've got all these historical, well-educated roles that are all going to be changed. I mean, most roles that deal in information are going to be completely changed by AI.
The problem is with a lot of it is it's all the middle ground, the kind of like the people who do the kind of day-to-day grind in those jobs, which are going to be redundant. The people who are in positions of power are going to be absolutely fine. So my worry with it is that it's going to affect those industries, but it will affect it in such a disproportionate way that you will end up with a lot of people out of work, and the people who have the well-paid kind of VP positions, whatever, are going to be fine, and they'll actually probably be making more profit. So the divide in society potentially could widen even more.
Absolutely, but that sounds weird. But that's why I'm kind of less
doomsday,
worried.
sorry.
But no. But I think that's kind of a realistic scenario. But I also feel that's maybe why I'm slightly less worried as a photographer, because if it was just our world that was going to be affected, I'd be up in arms. But it's going to be kind of up to 80% of jobs. I saw a report that said the other day, and you kind of go, okay, well, if as soon as government kind of get a whiff that they might have 40% of the population unemployed, they're going to have to step in and do something. I mean, I know governments move very slowly.
I mean, to counter it from a photography point of view, one thing I saw the other day that's quite interesting is Fujifilm. One of their biggest kind of market areas at the moment is their Fuji Instax cameras, which in Japan are basically their biggest sellers, and almost to the point where they are kind of pushing Sony out of certain markets because of it. Now, I mean, Sony don't offer anything like that in terms of, basically a Polaroid camera. But there obviously is a demand from people for that kind of creative outlet that is more tangible. And I mean, we've said it before, but I do always think that, and the utopian version of this is like, okay, say AI does kind of negate a lot of jobs. In a utopian world, it would allow free people up to actually do more creative things. And because we're in the realm of already doing that, then we are potentially in a position where we can kind of benefit from other people having more interest in the arts and more interest in kind of visual practice and what have you. It's going to be interesting. It's impossible to predict, but it's just funny how it's all kind of happening at the same time. Post-pandemic, you've got this kind of economic slowdown, especially in the UK, and then suddenly AI's popped along, and it's impossible not to be a little bit like. But if you go back, like there's always been these things. It was digital before, it was moving image as well. A few years after that, it was kind of like all these things that were going to kill off photography.
I think, yeah, it's a funny one. I do remember when Do you remember when, I can't remember which company it was, might have been Red, because I think they tried to get me to do it at one point. They were like, yeah, don't worry about stills. You can just take a frame from
Mm.
the moving image side of things. Oh, it was kind of like when the RAW format and Cine G became a thing. And
Mm.
I was just like, that's not quite how it works, guys. That's
Well,
not
no,
quite how
because
it works.
it's a different way of shooting and framing. I do see though that actually what that's done is create like it's almost like created a situation where you've got, better cinematography that's required in terms of lighting, more lighting, and intricately lit stuff, because you can then take a still from that, and use it. But obviously, the way that photographers work and the way that cinematographers work is very different. The way you move around a situation, the way you shoot a situation is very different. So in certain areas, say for example in feature films, you might be able to at some point get some key art from a still that's taken in the film because of the way that the image is lit. But quite often, what they'll need is actually something that's totally different, that's not actually appearing in the film. And ultimately, I think, if you look at kind of Photoshop and the way that now you can do kind of intelligent enhancing and AI enhancing of images and blowing images up, then yeah, there is still a risk that you could potentially take a still from video and expand it into something that could be used visually as your main piece of artwork. But from my perspective, what I've seen, and you see it if you follow any kind of decent cinematographer on Instagram, you'll see them kind of posting up stills of their work rather than the final moving image, because actually what they're creating is beautiful scenes, and they do work as pictures, but they don't look like photos. They just still look like, you know, screenshots from a film, because ultimately it's a different way of working. It's a different way of shooting. Quite often it's a different way of lighting. But I do think it's one of those things that's definitely developing in that way. So I don't know, but yeah, it we'll see. I mean, I do think that is something that is still a potential on the cards, as something that can happen. That kind of
Mhm.
taking stills from video.
I just think that it's obviously, just from a technical point of view, obviously the way moving image cameras capture the light is different to how we capture the light.
Yeah, and as I was saying, like the fact that you do see these occasionally, you do see these kind of cinematographers that kind of will have these screen grabs taken from their films, but they are beautifully lit, and I do wonder
Oh
if
yeah.
it is actually encouraging more thought maybe over cinematography. I certainly think cinematography has been elevated as a medium. Previously, I feel like cinematography was an area of the industry that was, took incredibly talented people, but was maybe misunderstood, or maybe
Hmm.
not given the recognition it deserves. Whereas now, you see uh, some of the cinematographers I follow, I'm so inspired by the work I'm seeing them produce, and it then influences my photography. And I think that's always been the case. A lot of photographers have been influenced by cinema, but it's been harder to access it. And quite often, you might have seen a film and then you might kind of have a vague reference. Whereas now you see these kind of stills taken from films and posted on social media, and you just think, wow, their color palette, their way of using light, their way of framing, is
It's a different. It's
fantastic.
it's a different level of access, though, isn't it? Right? You've got you've just got now. Before, you would, like you say, you've just watched the film, and then if you wanted to really kind of really delve into it, you rewind, you analyze the scene, or you
Mm,
take a picture or export a frame from it, and then you've
yeah.
got it yourself. But now you've got these guys who are completely involved, and also from an access point of view, I now know that there are so many more roles. Let's be honest, right? You love a film. When was the very last time you went through the credits and been like, oh, what is that role? Like, what is a
Mm,
best boy? Like, what
yeah,
does a
yeah, yeah.
gaffer do? What does a spark? What does do a sparks? What do any of these roles do? Well, now, obviously, you've got people all over social media explaining exactly what the role
Yeah,
is.
and the fact that you've got IMDb and things like that, where you can actually, you Google somebody and it'll come up with all their various roles they've played, so you can get a better understanding and people get more credit. But to go back to the stills thing, one resource that I love using is it's a company called Shot Deck, and
Hmm.
they create uh, stills or grabbed stills from films. So they will go through art, like old films and current films. They've got a huge archive of stuff that they're working their way through, and they will put it online and tag it with all the different things. So you can literally go on there and search cinematographer and see all of their work. You could just put in red forest night, something like that, and it would come up with any images from films, like screen grabs from films that have those keywords attached to it. So it's actually a really great resource for going in and finding inspiration actually for shoots. If you, I don't know, I was doing something a while back with motorbikes and something else. I can't remember what it was. It was quite obscure, and I ended up just kind of going onto ShotDeck and searching for those terms to try and create almost like a mood board that I could then search through and be like, oh, that's really interesting. Actually, I like the way that cinematographer did that, and start to build my own kind of mood board from that.
Nice.
So yeah,
your camera seems to be
I know
flashing light.
today I think it's on. It's not a week in the podcast unless Greg's got a problem with some of his tech.
It might be. Do you know what you need, Greg?
I know what it is, but I don't know how to solve it right now.
Oh, that's a close up, isn't it?
Yeah, just see my nipples. It's a shame for those who are listening to the podcast.
Is it?
You're missing out. I promise it won't be like this next week.
Sure. Promise away. So I would, if with your permission, like to talk about something.
Yes, go on. You go whilst I fix my camera, because I know what you're going to talk about.
Well, it's ironic, really, because obviously what I'm just about to talk about could help you with your camera. So I
can't afford it, mate.
I have decided over the past couple of weeks that I mean, I've had a lot of you listeners reach out, and I've had a lot of Instagram messages and WhatsApps and whatever. And obviously it's been amazing to hear from you all. But obviously I'm running a business, so I've been struggling to help everyone. So I decided to create mainframed.com. And so Mainframed is now tech support for the creative industries. So if you are struggling with your storage workflow, or you want to transition over and start shooting more video, or you already shoot video and you want to improve it, or you want to learn how to edit, or you want to learn the basics of color grading, or you want to kind of walk through and learn about tethering, I basically have decided to set up mainframe.com, where you can book a consultant. Currently that's me, and you are able to spend an hour or two, I think up to 6 hours at a time, going through and basically getting all your tech issues solved.
That's to take more than 6 hours, I think.
I mean, Greg, I'll do it for free for you. I feel like over the years it was kind of built up some favors, so I can fix it. Although by the looks of it, you have fixed it.
You've fixed multiple of my technical problems over the years. I mean, I'd be a big proponent of this. If anyone's got anything that they need to go through, Tom is a very patient man when it comes to solving tech problems. I think that's what lends itself the likability, hopefully, of this podcast, is the kind of the disparity between me and you when it comes to tech.
Well, look, I'm very techie.
I'm here to remind people that you can be a successful photographer without being hugely techie.
Exactly. Well, here's the thing, right? Greg, you're here to remind people that you can be very arty and not very techie. And I'm here to remind people that you can be very techie and less arty. It's the perfect balance. So, but also, I also wanted to say, obviously, as listeners of the podcast, I will offer you guys a 10% discount. So if you put exposed negative in the coupon area, you will get a 10% off any sessions you book. Plus, also, I give the show a little bit of a kickback. So you would, in fact, be supporting the show. See? Pleased to do that. But yeah, so if you do have any issues, obviously, happy to help. Anyway,
yeah, and we'll put the URL in the show notes and in the comments below if you're watching the video. So just check if you're in the YouTube. Bloody
in the YouTube. Speaking of YouTube, If you, I mean, you're probably sick. If you're a regular listener, you're probably sick of us
on
hearing.
the
YouTube. Say, son. So, but if you haven't been on our YouTube, what are you waiting for? We have got a YouTube channel, and so all of these chats now are in glorious full high definition. And so, if you would like to go and watch along with us as we record them, or see what our guests look like, or even see what we look like, questionable today, I'm afraid. Not Greg, obviously me.
I'd love to see their stats for how many people play the YouTube videos at like 2 times speed. Do you ever do that?
I do. Yeah. There's so many people when it's the world's most frustrating thing, isn't it? When you kind of there's the info in there somewhere,
Yeah.
but then you're like, oh, quick, today's sponsor, and you go, oh, God, I don't want to have a 5-minute video with 3 minutes of sponsorship about a game that I do not want to play.
Yeah.
And then I know exactly what you mean. So yeah, I do it. But yeah, probably I would say 95% of people.
What I like
maybe.
to do is just talk really fast. If anyone is watching it on a super slide, then this is just going to be unintelligible. So that's to you watching it at double speed. You bastard.
You bastard. You want to listen to us at half speed, right?
Yeah, that's really great.
Oh, me and you are the same person in a way, which is a worrying thing, isn't it? So, but yeah,
next,
go on so quickly. If you haven't listened to us on YouTube, please go over and like and subscribe, ring that bell, whatever they say, because we're still trying to get the numbers up on there. Sorry, Greg,
and it does really help. If you do want to share the videos with anyone you think would be beneficial, as I said, the whole archive's on there. So some really good chats on there, and the show notes are all in the comments. So that's hopefully should be really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
But we've got some fantastic guests coming up. I don't know how much to give away on it because I'm always a bit nervous in case for whatever reason something doesn't come off. But we have got some great, so I'm really excited about some of the episodes we've got coming up. Some of them are going to be super useful to you freelancers out there trying to run their business as well. We've got somebody in the pipeline who's hopefully going to bring on loads of good knowledge that is probably worth sitting down and paying someone for. So the fact that we can bring it to you for free is hopefully going to be a real benefit to people.
And if you want to subscribe to our Patreon,
link is below.
But yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, but that's why we do this show, isn't it? That's why we don't believe in gatekeeping pretty much at all. So I don't want my credit card number, but other than that, I'm pretty much good to go with knowledge. And what I think we've been really lucky with pretty much all our guests is how open everyone's been with us.
Yeah.
So yeah, the plan is to continue this. Long may it rain, etc. And yeah, we've got some great people coming up. Really excited for some of them. Sorry, if they're listening, I'm really excited for all of you. Obviously.
No, it'll be good. It'll be good. But listen, I've got a dash. You've got a dash. So for today, I think this is going to be us signing off. It's a short, sweet episode.
It is a short and sweet episode. But I think actually if we just are able to do these more often, hopefully you'll still enjoy them. If you don't
well, give us feedback. Yeah.
Absolutely. Please
we
do.
Love hearing from you. So
we do actually. And listen, right, genuine open call. If you guys want a specific guest, or if you want us to talk about a specific topic in these episodes rather than the FAQ ones, slide us an email. info@exposenegative.com. Drop us a message on Instagram. We're at xnegative. We're not bothering.
We're on Threads now.
We're on Threads now, absolutely. So if you want to thread us, what? Because obviously, if you tweet at someone, hang on. What do you do when you? What is it? You thread someone? No, that doesn't sound right, does it? You sew someone? I don't know. What's the
threatening?
Anyway,
I can't believe you missed that, Tom.
Anyway, do us a favor. Let us know in the notes below. Yeah. Drop us a note and let us know what you want us to cover. And then, always a pleasure, Greg. I'm looking forward to doing more of these chats because you're a very intelligent man and I like to be the stupidest person in the room. Or, as I've been corrected, most stupid. So, anyway, thanks very much for listening. Ta-ta for now. See you in a bit. Ta-ta for now. Not eating fish. Thank you very much for listening to the latest episode of the Exposed Negative podcast. If you'd like to support the show, you can do that by heading to our Patreon or doing one-offs. The details are on the website, and the Patreon is patreon.com/exposed negative. We'd love it if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/exposed negative. And obviously, we're on Instagram, which is xnegative. If you want to follow us personally, mine is tombarnes.com on Instagram, as and the website. And then Greg's is at Greg Fennell, and that's Funnell. So, yeah, thank you very much for taking the time to listen, and hopefully you enjoy the next one.